Warning, we are here. We apologize about being late, but you know what? Things are always changing. Welcome to the Golden Guys, everybody. Just like the Golden Girls, without all the sex appeal. But I will say something right now. We're missing a little bit of, and Carol Baskin, you a bitch. All right, then we'll get that out of the way. We don't like Carol Baskin here. So let me introduce everybody over here. DS, how we doing?
What's up? How's everybody doing? Yeah, things are hanging in there for me, and everything's going pretty well. So, I'm just looking forward to all of this stuff going on to end soon. I know it's affecting a lot of people more than me. So hang in there; it'll pass. But for me, I'm good.
All right, there. Knights, how we doing over there?
Good.
Good, hanging in there.
I think I'm gonna order from one of these ads in this really old Overstreet. That'd be good.
Nice, always good. Yeah, let's say that's that ad. We buy comics. All right, Mr. Golden Age Guru, good having you here. How are things?
Things are good, man. Like everybody else, just a lot of the same every day, and like you said, waiting for this to pass, enjoying TV. Like you mentioned, Carol Baskins. If you haven't seen good old Tiger King, then you truly are missing out on something special. So they just added another episode, I think yesterday or the day before, kind of a follow-up. So make sure to catch up. I know it's exciting, and on to comics.
On to comics.
Dude, I've been watching. I gotta tell you about this show I've been watching because it's amazing. It's called Dark.
Yeah,
and it's German, and it's time it's amazing. I love it.
That's pretty good. I binge watched that whole season already. It's pretty good.
I'm in the middle of season 2.
So we're going to shout out the chat before we begin our show and tell portion of the evening. We're going to start out with the first guy here, Mac Daddy, also 109. All right. He says there, Comic Man Annie, good having you here. Good Monday, one of the modern men there. And also the host of Andy Givens Thursday. Great show. Chris Barrett, now it's a show. We were just making sure. E-Rod, Just Rican has comics. Yo, what's going on? Hopefully, I want to welcome you down there. Fish Tropic, good having you here. And Mr. Gretzky 9966, I believe we might have to discuss an Archie book or two. We get him in here, that's for sure. Cougar Comics, howdy boy, howdy. There, speaking of Carol Baskin right there. We got more. What we got going on here? Keep going down the line. Anybody more? I don't want to repeat anybody. We're going to repeat this one right here. What the heck happened to the atomic age? Did it explode or disappear or what? Good call. We love people that use that term, the atomic age. At least I love 45 to 55, the true best part of the golden age. We got DS right here. I didn't miss anybody. We got Mr. TJ, the Slab Dragon Watson. We're going to put him out there because he referred to us as gentlemen. And we find that good. Here's aggressively relaxing. It goes Perry Comics. He's lurking in the shadows, everybody. When Perry's lurking, we're ready to keep going. Coach Vic 7. Hiya, chaps. Hello, Coach. How are you? We've got Man Cave Comics. Hey, boys. Good having you here. We've got Parasite Symbiote. Yo. I just spent my Trump check on Crocs and feeling okay. Hey, in other words, did you buy yourself a Fantastic Four 48? Because that's what I refer to as Crocs. We go Gorbadal. Dark is good science fiction. The better shows I've recently seen have been Counterpart and Baudu. Gorbadal, one of those that we do know, just one of us. So, anybody have anything for the show and tell portion of the show?
I just wanted to comment on the, I think it was sort of tongue-in-cheek about the Atom Age. I don't know that we've talked about this recently, maybe just a quick aside on this, but I noticed some of the designations for some of the eras or categories have changed over the last few years, and they're starting to encompass more or move in periods of time. For instance, I collect pre-code horror. I know pre-code horror traditionally has been like from Avon's Eerie, 1947, up through 54, and it was just horror comics. And now since that category has just blown up over the last several years, pre-code horror is now being expanded back even into the early 40s for anything that has sort of a dark and creepy cover. Atom Age, That's a weird one, and I don't think there's a consensus. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think on it. For Atom Age, I usually consider it the end of World War II when they drop the atom bomb. That sort of starts the Atom Age up until, late 50s, 58, sort of. And that's sort of be the, and then when the 60s, you get into like the Space Age. I think Atom Age for me is like 55 or 40, 45, 46 to like 58.
Right, you're right on the cusp of that to the ending of the Atomic Age, and because the sci-fi starts right at the middle of 58, you get science fiction, you get Tales of Suspense starts with Marvel starts doing all those Tales to Astonish, and it goes from this pre-code horror world to much more of a science fiction-y thing. You got the Frazettas. So I've always said the Atomic Age starts at the end of World War II, goes through Korea on up to after the code, just about, but depending on what was going on, the Atomic Age kind of leads into the science fiction age perfectly, the space age, in other words, because we start going into space. So I always say it's the dropping of the atom bomb to Sputnik in 57 and Sputnik and Alan Shepard's launch in the US and Yuri Gagarin in Russia. That time starts what I consider the space age, which goes right into the superhero age right there. I mean, I kind of think of those eras I split the Bronze Age in two, if you ask me. 70 to 74 is a completely different era than 74 to 79. Absolutely, two different eras altogether. So, but I'm one of those who finite every era anyway. So.
I tend to disagree with the hard lines of the World War II and the atom bomb and all that, because I don't look at it as stuff that's happened outside of the comic realm. I look at stuff that's happened in the comic realm. So for me, the change in the comic style, for the most part, of what people are reading and then what they're doing to get readership and is what makes that line for me. So Atomic Age, if you think about it, wasn't named after the atom bomb was dropped. That was named way later by people who put a name on it. So it's really like associating the two, for me, isn't the same thing as apples to apples. I look at it as it being like 1947 to 55-ish or so. Is for me the Atom Age, because you start seeing that transition, and not just in horror, you're seeing it with female figures and superheroes starting to come into major titles, and the major heroes now having more of a teammate partnership and splitting the title. And for me, that's where I designate the Atomic Age as more around 47 and go to 55 and then 56. We can just go with Silver Age, and that's kind of how I always looked at it for that time frame. And I love the Atomic Age personally, and I think there is definitely a distinction, and there should be a greater one. We mostly talk about the Golden Age, and then we make it feel like it's this huge thing, but you just lose people when you throw an Atomic Age, and then you go back to Golden Age using that term because you just don't even want to have that discussion again with somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was interesting to have the discussion. I mean, and I want to hear what Knights has to say too, but so far the three of us, we sort of have a lot of overlap, but it's different. Three Golden Age collectors here have three different sort of eras. What do you think, Knights?
Well, so my classifications go like pre-war, so before U.S. enters World War II, so everything published before Pearl Harbor, then during the war, all the way to 45, late 45, and then post-war. But I'm okay with that being the Atomic Age, just because the heroes were like doing barbecues and stuff on the covers.
Babysitting. Batman was babysitting
to me, even though it's still in the 40s, and then to me, the Silver Age starts with Flash in Showcase 4.
Showcase 4, yeah.
I feel like 56 then. So yeah, I think we have a lot of I hear a lot of people using the terms pre-code horror and Atom Age, and it's it's not real clear anymore what any specific person is referring to. They used to have real hard lines, but since it's blown up and so many more people and money has moved into that area of the hobby on some of the more obscure, like non-action, non-text type stuff, it seems like some of the lines are blurring, and I'm fine with that. It's just it leads to an interesting discussion when there's sort of some blurring of the lines and some broader definitions of stuff. I think it enriches the hobby, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, I think one of the great things that Jeff and you just brought up is there is no finite, and you're right, because these names, Golden Age, Atomic Age, Silver Age, Modern Age at the time, because it was done in the mid 70s, late 70s, early 80s is when these guys were creating these names, and Don Rosa was one of them. I interviewed Don for 45 minutes about the atomic age and the time and why it was different. And from his point of view, it starts with, you got the 4-color, the paper, you've got Canadian whites were gone. You started going into all these different aspects and reprinting and comics that were telling stories differently, and the art was better, but there was less of a story to tell and more of a picture to draw, as a lot of them called it. Then you had the dawn of the way different artists that we've ever seen before, with the L.B. Cole, and the women being drawn by Baker and Kamen and Doolin were just way better than anything we had before that. And then the women became more powerful. Sheena the Wonder Woman was 44. I mean, when we get into the atomic age, the women are the ones doing the crimes, and when you get into it. So it's just one of those eras that I just think that it defines itself to each person who collects from that era. And I happen to think the Jungle Books in that era were some of the best, and as well as I like this is my favorite title of the era, non-jungle related, is Uncanny Tales. And I just like it because they're not just horror stories. And yes, this is the code, because I still consider this pre-code horror. It's 55, but it's not horror as much as this is very similar to the House of Mystery was for DC later on. I just like the Uncanny Tales. Usually this is Sal Brodsky cover, but I do like it with the little swamp creature right there out of the swamp. Turns out it's like a little lemur kind of thing.
Well, they had to tell
an anticlimactic story.
Yeah, normally they'd have some massively grotesque creature tearing flesh off people, but they couldn't do that with the stamp.
This guy's like Gizmo. I mean, post Cody's Gizmo, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I think Bonafide got a good question in the chat. He's directing it towards me. I don't know what the answer is, or even what some of the contenders are. What would be a Grail of the atomic age? The Atom Age atomic.
It would have to be what genre?
Well, go ahead. I mean, I would not.
Jungle would have to be Jumbo 69 for historic significance. Jumbo 69 would be it, because it's the first work ever done by Matt Baker that's known. So that's, his first published work. That's Jungle. Superhero. I mean, we're not going to do Showcase 4. What are you going back to? I mean, you can't go anything. What would be of that era? I mean, the Star Spangled with Robin.
It would be probably a Men's Adventure, Human Torch, one where they brought him back, a revival, maybe for that time frame.
What about that Weird Tales Captain America?
Yeah, I was going to just say 74, I think is what it is, if I remember. I think that was 47, 47, 48. Yeah, for me, I would think with the most of the Grails, I mean, if we're talking about rarity and actual value, I would think would have to fall into that horror, only because that's probably the stuff that got burnt the most and destroyed in that time frame, was that
Punch 12.
Yeah, just something in the horror genre, I would think. Not to say that's but overall, I think for value and scarcity together, I would probably think of that is where we would find it.
Would probably be the big value ones in that era, but outside of the horror and the crime ones are mostly the horror related crime ones.
Right.
Outside of that, it's really tough to sort of to come up with one, honestly.
I mean, Science Lady, you got that.
Oh, Phantom Lady might have been like 748.
Yeah.
And the robot Schomburg cover.
Starling 49.
Yeah, that's 1948.
That's 48, yeah. Starling 49.
That's a good Grail one right there, Schomburg. Or even your Frazetta Famous Funny stuff.
Famous Funny.
That's been very crazy hot Grail. Getting to that Frazetta stuff's getting to that Grail tier right now with the way the prices have been on it.
I'll tell you that Famous Funny's 213 is just exploded, and every one that comes up is more expensive than the last. And it is, I think, only people are really into like the dark GA or the sci-fi or Frazetta stuff are noticing that, because it doesn't come up a lot. And but I'll tell you that 213, every time one comes up, man, it is just going higher and higher and gaining more attention. And that's my favorite one in that run, and that's the ultimate one that I want. And I've dragged my ass on it for so long that now I'm gonna have to just play the game and try to get lucky. It's not like you can just go and pick. You know, there's some stuff still when it's still not a lot of attention, or you like it and most people others don't. You can just sort of grind it out, pick them up here and there, and do whatever. And then the other ones, you really got to have a game plan to pick them up because they're getting in that out of reach sort of category. And 213 is like that now.
Yeah, Frazetta's are definitely the one that, as a artist collector with my Buscema and my rights, and I have a lot of Frazetta, almost all the Warren publishing stuff he ever did. But
what book from 46 to 54
has headlights like that? No.
More than this.
Oh, 46, that's right.
How much is that on cost? Like a VG copy of that?
20.
A lot.
20, if that. I mean, it's 20,000, and that's definitely the Baker one of the two. The one with the ship's wheel that they keep claiming is Baker. I still say it's not. It doesn't look anything like anything he's ever done before.
Yeah. So is this the most expensive book of that time?
Well, how much is Punch 12? I mean, Punch 12 is the scarce one of the bunch, right?
Ooh.
It's got to be, of all the horror books, Punch 12 is probably of that era we're talking. I'm not saying Suspense 3. Let's go to what we're going with right now, which is this era. I got to think Punch 12 has got to be one of those that is a unicorn to find in a good grade. So.
Yeah, are we going back as far as 45 on this for Atomic Age, or what are we doing? Because those 2 years make a difference.
Yeah. What year was Punch 12? 46,
Punch
right?
12 45.
Oh. Is it before the war ended or after? I'll look it up.
After.
I mean, it's a good chance it's before, right?
Well, August 6th. So it would have to be
January 45.
Yeah, so that's all right. So that falls into that category. So it doesn't even fall into pre-code hard necessarily. How crazy is that?
I think it's funny, yes, that you said 213 that you've been dragging your ass for so long on that book, and then you were just like taking this breath, like you're going to announce that, all right, I just have to jump on it now, and you're just like, I'm just going to be more patient. It's just like you talked about dragging your butt and being.
They're one in the clink action
because when that happens, it's like I have to adjust my patience and the quickness of my trigger. It's like it's both at the same time. I have to be patient, but when I see the right one, I have to aggressively attack. As opposed to some of the stuff that's not that hot right now, you can be patient and you can pick and choose and you can go after them, not half-heartedly, but there's not a sense of urgency. But as opposed to that one, when I see one that meets my requirements, that's sort of like ballpark grade and price, and I have the budget, I'll be patient until that arrives. And when that's there, I'll aggressively go after it. So I mean, I'll be patient until I see it, and then I will aggressively go after it, as opposed to being patient and looking for the right copy and just sort of ho-hum picking up a book.
Nice.
This is the one I wanted for a while, but if I didn't get it, no big deal. I didn't put a lot on bid for this and, pick this up. But that's, a little different sort of, I don't know. The difference for me is when I'm bidding on the auction, is my adrenaline pumping or not? If it is, then it's a 213 level type book. If it's not, it's a Smash Comics type thing. That's the difference.
I think TJ says there's no Atomic Age, just Golden, pre-code, and after ending with Showcase 4. I think I'm a Showcase 4 cutoff person myself for the Golden Age. I think a lot of us are. It is first Barry Allen, but I think more or less comics, at least DC changed and Marvel was falling into line with their experimental heroes. I don't think people, before the Fantastic Four, there was a lot of experimental characters they were going through that eventually became your Doctor Stranges and your Hulks and your Groots and stuff like that. But eventually.
I want to mention a comic, if you don't mind, that some people classify as the start of Silver Age, and that's Detective Comics 225 with the Martian Manhunter as being part of it. And most people take Showcase 4. I've never made the argument for the Detective 225, not to say it's right or wrong. I just haven't really decided to switch my thought process and be like, okay, Year Sooner was maybe the first superhero, or not the first, but it's the kick of the Silver Age. Any of you guys have a different perspective of the Showcase 4 versus maybe Tech 225?
I just think Showcase 4 being what Showcase was itself. Remember, it had a firefighters in the first episode. It wasn't a superhero book until Showcase 4. And as big as Fantastic Four 1 was for Marvel, I think Showcase 4 was that to DC. It was there because that led into the goal, what DC, and I'm a big Marvel guy and everybody knows that, but I will admit that DC was ahead of the time from going from whatever the golden age, pre-COVID, whatever, to the superhero age of the Silver Age, and then they started the Bronze Age too, hands down. they did it both.
Me, the way this is probably unpopular and a very minority view, but for me, Silver Age, yeah, like technically, I think it's probably Tech 225 because that predates Showcase 4, but Showcase 4 was a much bigger book. But really, I mean, the Silver Age, it's sort of come to mean, FF1, AF-15, Hulk 1, like the Marvel superheroes at the beginning of the 60s up until like 1969 is the Silver Age. I know technically Showcase 4 is in there and technically Tech 225. But, man, when you talk Silver Age, people are talking Marvel superheroes. It's hard for me to think Silver Age that does not include Marvel superheroes. And so there leaves a gap for me just personally when I think about it of like 55 to 61. Yeah, I guess it can attach onto the Silver Age, but I feel like it's just sort of like a gutted golden age with the Comic Code Authority and people trying to find their footing for the next era. And it's sort of like a limbo because there's not, I mean, DC sort of got their footing before Marvel, but it's sort of like a limbo area after the CCA until Marvel superheroes. It's sort of like a limbo period to me, but technically I guess Silver Age. I don't know. If that makes sense.
I kind of look at the 50s part as a very key integral part to the Silver Age because we know Marvel was failing for the most part, and it wasn't only them trying to emulate something that DC did in the 50s to save their butts with FF and have a team and come together with something. So I think it plays a big part. Granted, like currently culture is all about Marvel more so than DC, but that's just a current time pattern. Back then, I mean, we got to assume that Flash was a big deal, Justice League was a big deal, Green Lantern was a big deal, DC's universe was pretty amazing. And those books, man, that early 50s stuff, DC stuff's really tough in general to even get in really great grade.
Also had the media. They had the George Reeves Superman was on everywhere. The cartoon, the weekly, the daily newspaper had a Superman in every one of them. There was lunch boxes in the 50s, and the kids were running around knowing who the superheroes were, knew who Batman was, who Wonder Woman was. They had no idea who anybody from Marvel was up until the mid-60s. So I kind of think Superman had that, and then with the dawn of the Silver Age, even during the Silver Age, we have to admit that what DC was leading the way from Marvel up until probably the 80s, if you think about it, because the 70s the superheroes you're talking about didn't sell a lot. AF-15 was an amazing fantasy 15 that changed it with Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four was very popular, but it wasn't like as good as what Batman was doing because of the Adam West show was doing in '66. At the same time, they're introducing guys like the Silver Surfer and these cosmic things that failed after 18 issues. Now are popular, but Thor had to fight his way through, and they always put like other characters. They always threw Spider-Man in random issues. The 14th issue of Silver Surfer had Spider-Man, and so did Nova and all these other ones. Well, DC played their cards right in the beginning, and then now the media has taken over. Think about it. What was our first real Marvel movie? Would have been what, Conan? But that's not even a Marvel movie. You got to go back to what? But Superman, DC had a bunch. So it kind of helps them.
I kind of disagree with. I don't know. I'd like some of that weed you're smoking because when the Fantastic Four came out and Spider-Man, all of a sudden teenagers started reading comics, and he was going to colleges and giving talks, and it became this whole pop culture thing beyond like a 5-year-old or 7-year-old.
I thought it was X-Men though.
Even DC didn't think of their books as needing to appeal to anyone older than like 8 or 9-year-old or something, you know.
Which we could even start there. What's the start of the Bronze Age? I say DC did it again with Green Lantern 76.
But Marvel, the relatability, what Stanley and Kirby did was, and every kids could relate to these characters, nerds and like people with anger problems and
Right, that was the 60s part. I was talking more about the 50s part. Why Marvel didn't have anything? They didn't.
Oh yeah, well I'm saying the more influential, even though Flash I think started the Silver Age technically. I think if the Marvel Age, as some people call it, never happened in 60 or whatever, comics, might have been in more trouble, I think.
I always there's this one guy who told me the story when he's an older guy, and when Green Lantern 76 came out, the Green Arrow, Green Lantern one, not the Speedy doing drugs, but the one there, that one changed everything. They said that was the book that they said that not since X-Men did they appeal to, but that was when DC finally got to Marvel's level as far as the writing in there and the pop culture part of comics itself. You're right. But what I was getting more to it said, but up until that point of 62, 63, 64, these things were out and it was getting popular. It wasn't like people turned on the TV and everybody was talking Marvel Comics. It took a long time before they started making all of them. While DC was Drek and they were putting out, Batman babysitting, but then in 59 things started changing very much. And then again,
DC had them under Marvel had to publish through DC.
Right. It was crazy.
Only so many books per month.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everything was a hit, right? Win for them. Like you got to think Hulk canceled after 6 issues, right? And then you had to go split titles. You had Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense. They had to carry each other until they got traction. Obviously, you had your hits. Spider-Man sounds like it blasted off from the start. And X-Men might have been a slow burn or slow start. Avengers, at some point, FF obviously hit the ground running. So, again, they still had to build traction because obviously up until then, they kind of were maybe a forgotten memory until they started really taking off in the 60s. And then, they started to leave DC in the dust slowly. But DC still carried itself well with its horror and its, they had good artists come through there that did great work. And it's interesting, the whole history of it. I just don't want to, dismiss the Silver Age 4 or 5 years where DC, I feel, carried the comic market and kept comics going.
Yeah.
And not to say that Marvel didn't do anything, Marvel, Atlas, whatever you want to call them at that time, but I think obviously Marvel, maybe they saved comics. Maybe DC would have established some other characters too in the 60s. Who knows? But yeah, it's just interesting to think watching this history. As always, it's fascinating for all of us. We just love the history of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, if DC characters weren't doing such kind of silly kid stuff, then the code might have, they might have went under too. And you're right. They could have carried it through the 55 through 60.
But if we go publisher, I agree. Conan 1 would be Marvel's equivalent of the Bronze Age start for sure. Barry Windsor Smith decided, all right, we're going, bring out that. There was a topic. What did you want to talk about? The unicorns in shopping, trying to find a unicorn.
Why don't we just give our opinions on the start of bronze and copper?
Oh, bronze and copper.
Yeah.
Oh, copper. You guys go first. I got my bronzes. My 2 bronzes are
For bronze,
76 and Conan 1.
bronze starts in 1970. But the bronze for me, I'm talking about bronze as superhero. I collect bronze books, but I collect DC bronze horror. So for me, DC, it's either Wrightson or Adams and a little bit of a supporting cast and whatever is good.
Nick Cardy.
Nick Cardy's in there, Louis Dominguez. Guys like that. Kuber did some stuff. But for Marvel and the superhero, they pretty much owned, I feel like, for the most part. They had a huge majority of it. The stories noticeably took sort of a darker, more serious tone after the ASM 121 and 122. Now, that's a bit into the 70s. That's like 73 or 74. So that's a bit in. But that seems to be a noticeable change in the tone of comics, storytelling, and art. It became grittier, sort of more violent in a way. It's sort of just grittier to me is sort of how I feel like it. But that leaves out a few years of early 70s and I'm not a huge Bronze DC guy aside from horror. So early 70s DC horror is phenomenal. But there's a distinct difference between early DC Bronze horror and after like 74, 75 too. So I feel like 73, 74 is sort of where it's noticeably a different era to me as far as the substance of the books.
If you want to talk about, go ahead.
I
was going to say, if you want to talk about like Spider-Man books that maybe changed, you can also talk about earlier. If you want to go back, you could talk about the drug issues that Stanley pushed for with, 97, 98. You have the death of Cap Stacy in 93-ish, 94. I can't remember. But then you get 97, 98, you get the drug stuff coming into play.
Yeah. And the same Green Lantern issues around that time too. That had
the 85.
7 or 85 or something.
Yep. And then you've got, that's all 70, 71, 72. But you also, in Marvel, just during that era, you had their bringing in of their titles, their horror. They rebranded their old stuff, Creatures on the Loose and Chamber of Chills. They brought back another Journey into Mystery. They started bringing those back and redoing some of the Golden Age stuff. But they also went totally cosmic with Starlin, went nuts in 72, 73. Going with Iron Man into the Captain Marvel run went cosmic. So you had that going on at the same time. The key about that Bronze Age start for me being Conan, it's 70, but it was different. It was blood and guts on a comic book that wasn't there before. You didn't, I mean, you had it in the DC horror of a pulling down or something like that, but you didn't have it in like in a House of Mystery or, something like, House of Mystery or a House of Secrets. But you didn't, but in DC, it's always that one issue that everybody talks about, the Neil Adams, the writing and the change, the one just before Speedy Does Drugs when they join up, and they deal with real issues at that point. When DC went from being babysitters to, and I always use that example, but babysitters and softball players to literally getting into the down and dirty. So those two are the Bronze Age. And Marvel was just totally changed everything right there.
Well, you guys forgot one thing, which to me defines the Bronze Age. That's an Adam DC book. The Great One is Coming. 1970, Jack Kirby left Marvel. So to me, that changed everything.
That's okay. In comics at that point. I'm okay with the Conan being like 1970, because there is a thing in the 70s where there was a lot of that Dungeons and Dragons type fantasy stuff. That was you had the fanzines and like Eerie and all those type things. And Dungeons and Dragons actually, I think, started in the late 70s. And Conan was like a seminal artwork in that sort of category. So that makes sense too. Again, I don't think there's a bright, solid line, but there's a lot of interesting arguments can be made as to the start of it.
Yeah, why do you feel that Jack Kirby moving to DC is the turning of the page for the Bronze Age? I mean, it's cool and all, but I don't really think he's recognized as a DC great. I mean, he did his Fourth World stuff, which quasi hit at that time.
New God was okay.
Well, it's not necessarily that he made DC great. It's like he left Marvel, and even in '69, if you read about it, he started withholding all his a lot of creative ideas because he was getting sick of it, and he was like New Gods and a lot of that stuff was actually
Galactus
in Marvel, but he just stopped creating new characters, and the rate of his characters, I mean, just insane. So to me, it was just kind of the end of an era, and to me, I like it when it's kind of clean like that, because I went all over the place, over the years trying to figure it out. But I don't know, that always felt good to me, right when his Fantastic Four run was done. It was just, I mean, if you think about any time in history when they created so much lasting characters, I mean, they're, I guess maybe early Golden Age, but other than that, there's been no time.
Well, they always said the nail in the coffin was the 18-issue Silver Surfer set that Jack hated, and he was so upset about it, and he totally left and took those characters and made the New Gods or whatever, and again the Fourth World stuff. I mean, his stuff was incredible even Mr. Miracle was incredible, but I can see your point as if you're going by artist ratio, yeah, but then DC also not having Kirby at that point, but bringing up guys like Bernie Wrights and Nick and guys that were already established on that payroll. But I'm trying to think who else were the big ones. Joe Kubert was there.
Yeah, Neil Adams.
Neil, Bernie.
Style, like Steranko was big then.
Yeah,
Neil Adams, Barry Smith was coming up, Starlin.
Sal Buscema was doing well too. I mean, he was.
John goes back to the Golden Age, but when he started doing his Marvel stuff again,
he took a break for a long time. Stan had to bring him in, to do that Silver Surfer. He did that Silver Surfer run for the most part, or if not all of it.
He did all of it, but the last issue. But the other thing is, when he first came back, he was doing that Strange Tales. He did the Dum Dum Dugan story in Strange Tales 150. But he was already at Marvel, did the cover in 59, and he just did not want to do superheroes. So John's best work, if anybody wants to know, outside of Thor, because he started Thor right around the Bronze Age too, he took that for a ton of issues, and he did all the Avengers from 41 on, pretty much all your famous Avengers. There's either him, Murray Severin, or there was one or two George Tuscas. But the Bronze Age for Marvel was Buscema, pretty much. It was John. John did all the big titles, and then you had the guys that were doing because John was doing
Gil Kane.
Gil Kane, another one. Gene Colan did a team of the Tomb of Draculas, and
Chris Barrett mentioned Carmine Infantino. He was around for a long time, but
he played both. He was, I think, didn't he go back and forth between Marvel and DC in the Bronze Age in like a couple of years of each other?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know his Marvel stuff at all.
Infantino, he did the whole
he was the editor for DC
Flash from like 105 to 175. I know he worked on Spectre too. I always think Infantino and Murphy Anderson as like Silver Age DC guys that I really liked. But I'm not really into the superhero stuff, and so when I gravitate towards anything past Golden Age, it's Bronze Age horror, and it's DC, and it's Neil Adams, and it's Bernie Wrightson with a little smattering of some of those other guys. But I don't really get into the superheroes that much. But 60s and 70s for superheroes, I think is Marvel owning it. I think DC came back a little bit in the 80s, but still didn't own. But I feel like they gained a lot more market share back in the 80s, where they were just getting creamed in the 60s and 70s. That's how
the Copper Age split. I mean, now that is way harder for me to figure out where that splits. Bronze and copper.
See, I go with Secret Wars storyline and the Spider-Man black costume. It's like the start of these long sort of crossover massive event type things.
Jim Shooter era.
Secret Wars. The Ultimate Infinite Earth for DC. Those things are like 84, 85. I feel like that's the start of like more epic comic book storylines.
Yeah, you can start looking at some of the independent publishers coming out, like, when you have the Turtles one coming out at that time, and Cerebus, you have some of these other more underground mainstream people that are able to publish and kind of change the status quo.
I think the British invasion changed everything to the Copper Age, because I call the British invasion Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison, Garth Ennis. That's the British invasion. When they got here, all hell broke loose. I mean, they redid everything. But I'll have to say, like, probably some of the Teen Titans in the 30s and the 40s, probably start a lot of it, because it's trying to change. Marv Wolfman is one of those writers that was early in the Bronze Age doing a lot of the Tomb of Dracula, and then he did a lot of Nova. So if you start, just to me, I consider Nova a copper into there. And Marvel would be defined as Jim Shooter, also known as the team-up squad world of everything teaming up in squads and 2-in-1s and team-ups and triple actions and, very Jim Shooter kind of a thing going on. DC, I mean, you redid Superman. And until you really get into Frank Miller really putting the kibosh on everything with Dark Knight, until that happened, that's got to be a definitive end right there.
So you're saying that
85, I think Frank Miller on Batman is like 85, isn't it? 85.
That
86.
is the hard cutoff of anything because that is different than anything we had before. So,
Are you saying this is bronze, not copper?
yeah, that's what year is that? No, that's
79.
Claremont. Yeah, the X-Men, maybe the X-Men 94 would be the start because that's the thing. Copper Age we hear is 86 to 92. That's years. I can't use years because I'm going to go back to Frank Miller being the start of the Copper Age, but not the end of the Bronze Age. Can't be 20 years. It can't be 15 years because
Well, the modern age is 30 years apparently.
yeah, it makes no sense. That's why
Steel Age.
You get to Spawn 1, and that's modern age, and that's it. It just keeps going.
Yeah.
Oh, Steel Age. Everybody say it with me. Steel Age. Death of Superman. Man of Steel. 1992.
It should be a good
Steel Age till whenever, man.
Steel
Steel
Age. I like that one. I like the modern. What do we call this variant age? I don't know.
I don't know, the Diamond Age.
The Diamond Age. The day when Diamond took over. That's a good one. Copper Age, the age that changed everything. I agree, Steve.
The day they stopped doing newsstands is a day that stands out in my mind as a dark day in comics, honestly. When they stopped having any newsstand comics, which was like, I don't know, like 2002.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like the last ones were like a few of the Hudson Newses had them, and they were the last ones when you were getting like almost trades were the only thing they had left.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem right to have comic books where you can't buy any newsstands anywhere ever anymore, and they're all diamond, all direct market to comic shops.
And never delivered to your house.
Different.
Yeah, sucks. Oh well, what are you gonna do?
I go with 83. The end of Frank Miller's Daredevil run is the official end of the Copper Age, and then it starts with Secret Wars 1 in 84.
Shooter. I would say the Secret Wars, the team up age. That's what very popular around the time Alan Moore started writing Swamp Thing.
I'll tell you, here's the DS age is 1938 to 1988. The 50 years there, that's the DS Comics age. Anything in here I'll deal with. Anything outside of that, I'm really not interested too much. So I'll go a little before 38, but it's not like I have one book from before that, and it's like a serial giveaway, Book Rogers. So I'll stick with 38 through 88.
Yeah.
I'll go
Honestly, when I'm talking about ASM 300, for me, that's like I consider that a modern. Spawn 1 is a modern. Like anything from 88 to modern, that's how I am. So.
I mean, yeah.
Death of Superman ended it for me.
That's a good time. Yeah. I mean, I
that
like that. I mean, I still read Thor and Doctor Strange now and any surfers that come out. And I always buy like I'll buy more Independence than anything else. I like Independence more.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some Golden Age unicorns that we have on our list.
Unicorns. Okay, so I'm going to example of a unicorn to me is something not of interest 34 because I'm not going to get into my Grail one. It's a simple one. It's Airboy Volume 4, Number 1. It doesn't sound like it's anything, and it's nothing special about it then, and it's impossible to find. 3 on the census. It's just one of those that I've never seen in the wild. I've seen in Adventure 34 in the wild. I've seen one of these, and it's been on eBay for 2 years now, and the guy will not budge on his price.
I think the unicorns find you.
Go ahead. That's deep. Explain yourself, though. I want to know what you're smoking now.
You can't really ever know until you start looking for that one book, and then you have to wait like freaking years to even try to buy it.
Yeah, I don't know if this qualifies, but this is a unicorn for me. It's impossible to find. It's a super big grail for me. I absolutely love this book, and it's not like if I had $5,000 or $50,000, I could even find one. It's just like there's none out there. Like nobody has them, wants to give them up. Nobody ever puts them up for auction. They never. There's been one like incomplete sort of 0.5 copy around. I think it might still be on eBay. I don't know, but I want like a good copy of this. You know what I mean? And it's just like you can never see it, and it's so badass.
I'll sell you mine for $50K if you have it. If you really want it.
If it's a 9.2, I'll take it.
Oh, now there's stipulations on it. Jesus.
Hey, I'm just looking for like a 2.0, 2.5, complete, presentable, unrestored copy. and I will pay up for it. Honestly, at 2025, I actually offered somebody. They had one in that range. I offered them $5,000 for it, and it was a very,
I want the whole
very
screen.
interested reception to that offer. And I was like, man, I was standing. This was last year. I thought that was sort of standing tall on that book for like a 2025 to offer $5,000. I thought that was like legit, and it was no interest on that offer at all, really. So
Show it again.
Yeah, I want everybody to see it again.
Dynamic. What number?
8.
Yeah, I had to jump on my copy 3 years ago. I was looking for this book for a while now, and when I saw one, I had to jump into it. And then I've been trying to pick up others since, but the problem has been that a lot of people are, and that $5,000 offer that you're mentioning, like I've talked to people who've turned those down in the past too, and in that grade. So it's interesting. It's one of those things that you might just find in the wild because people just don't know enough or know about it, and the prices aren't, easily accessible.
Who's the artist?
I think it's Gus Ricca, but I'm not sure. He did a lot of Chesler work. I think it's a Gus Ricca cover.
I think it's Dan Hastings. Dan Hastings.
The Dan Hastings.
I think
this was mine. I didn't want to not.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah,
This one is kind of a tough one to find. It's from it's one of the early ones. So there's that lovely. So there it is. It's just of all the Airboy elephant ones. That's a pain in the ass one. It's got this bondage cover on it, and I know it's one of the early ones. So it's just one of those I've never seen. So
I got another theory on Unicorn is if it's a book that is known as super, super expensive and it still isn't ever offered, then it's even more of a unicorn, in my opinion, because I mean, you're throwing all that money at people and they like, so clearly people are either just holding on or like there's a limit to how many people could just turn down money. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're offering tons and you still can't get it, or like the sales of the comics are going crazy and you still don't see them up for auction, then to me, they're more of a unicorn than something that just no one.
Okay, well,
because they never thought it would sell or something,
Well, here's one that's a unicorn. I think we can all agree on because there's no slab, 0. Jumbo 1, first Jack Kirby work. You'll never see it. We've asked for it. You've seen them trade a few times recently on a Comic Link auction. I thought there was one in the last 4 years, and people said it was incomplete and wasn't there. I mean, you
only judge that if they CGC'd it.
But they can't CGC it. I never will.
I'm just saying, without that, I feel like you can't really. You don't know. You can't know.
I just know that if anybody ever talked to a dealer, ask him if he has a Jumbo 1.
Yeah, but
they usually never get rid of it.
I like what you said to say there, Knights. It sounds like really the unicorn thing has to be with more of it being replaceable. There's obtaining it and selling it, and then there's the collector who's just like, I'm not going to be able to replace it. So it's more just,
could be,
what's that number? I mean, I have trouble letting go of stuff, even if you gave me a high number on it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, it's got to be pretty big to where I can then put that money to another book that I really want instead. But that's for me. So yes, the replaceability, I think that becomes a problem with these unicorns.
Yeah. If you say it was a $500 book though, and you were like, it might take me years to find this again, you wouldn't worry about it as much as if it was a $50,000 book.
I don't know, because if you're complete, I don't know, because it took me forever to find Lawbreakers 3, and I'm not parting with it, man. It took me forever to find one. I mean, years.
The unicorn that I scored a while ago. At 1.5, this is Suspense 2. This is the toughest one of the run. I've seen 2 copies in the last 3 years, and the other one was just recently, but it was a restored copy. So this is the only, unrestored copy, and only the second copy I've seen in like 3 years. I think this is sort of a unicorn, and I saw this on eBay. I put it up on eBay and I just bought it, and it really wasn't that expensive, and it's low grade. It's probably not worth really all that much, but I mean, this is a super tough book to come by. I think this qualifies. This is one unicorn I do have. It doesn't compare to a Dynamic 8, but I thought that would be a cool one to show for a unicorn.
So maybe there's two classifications then, because I feel like it's
this extremely fine
for like a fifth, like a Morphon 54. I never see that for sale, but it's a huge classic cover.
Well, yeah.
So
all American,
yeah, necessarily a unicorn, right? I mean, I don't know, but you can't buy one. So what the hell's that? Pegasus. It's a Pegasus.
It's a Pegasus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jeff. What do you think is a good? What's your personal unicorn that you just don't like? Because this took me a long time to find, and years to find one like this, and I still. I know I shouldn't be grabbing it, but I don't care. It's what I do, but I love it.
I mean, I had a unicorn that I obtained, luckily, many years ago, and for any other unicorn, for me, it's just trying to find something reasonable. Like let's say Suspense 3 for me. Okay, love that book. All American 16 and Suspense 3. Those are my books. But great, I can buy those if I just throw money at it. So it's more so trying to obtain these at a reasonable point, and that's for me what becomes the unicorns. Like I feel there's a lot of books you throw the money at, when it comes up you can buy it. So for me there isn't really true unicorns, because I think it always all comes up. You monitor the auctions, you'll find your book, except for very few, but it's finding it in the right price point where that then becomes the unicorn factor. So it's like, what margin do you want to get into a book? And for me it's like, okay, well, I can always play market. I don't want to pay market. So for me, it's more the hunt of the book, finding it. So I have books on my unicorn list if you want, but like I can always obtain them when they come up to auction, but it's finding it for that price point. That just like you with the 213 Famous Funnies. You said you've been dragging on it, and then now you can buy it, but yeah, you still don't pull your trigger on it because you don't want to get it for a price point that you want to get into it. Now, there's going to be those times where, there's been books in the past where I see it and I have to have it. Boy Comics, that Boy Comics I showed you guys with the character holding it. I wanted that book for the longest time. I got it upgraded without even intention trying to. I bought it because I wanted it for the longest time. I saw it, I bought it, I claimed it. It just happened by chance that I looked at it in the holder. Like, oh my God, actually, this is even nicer than I expected. And so, that was a book at the time that I just paid up because I really wanted it. I saw it and I never saw it. But I don't do a lot of auctions online. I never look at those things. I'm starting to more so just to get a feel of what's coming out and what's out there, and it's more enticing. But again, it still feels like I'm paying for market every time I go to auction online.
Yeah.
Here's something I've got from some people that are watching us but can't tell you there. Our flag number 5 as a possible unicorn. Do you see that often? It's one. 4 Favorites number 5 as well. Wonder World Comics number 7. And we said Punch 12 and Super Mystery Volume 6 number 3.
Well, I'll tell you, the Super Mysteries, I don't know which one that is. That might be the paper cutter one. The Super Mysteries, there are several Super Mysteries that are legit impossible to find regardless of how much money you have. The paper cutter, there's a handful out there. They go for crazy money when you do see one, which is rare. But some of those Super Mysteries, I'll still see. There was one, I think, Jeff, you and me were talking about it recently. It was on eBay. Was that a Super Mystery with like the Hitler face on it that was being attacked or chopped up or burned or something? Remember that one?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I just know those Ace Publication stuff early like that is tough. Yeah, for sure. And they have a lot of great covers. And yes, the paper cutter one is amazing.
Yeah.
And, but those early ones can be tough for sure. They all can be tough.
Yeah, here's a pre-code horror unicorn. This is considered the rarest of pre-code horror books. It's This Magazine is Haunted number 3. It's legit impossible to find. I know 2 people that have them. Of all the people I know that collect pre-code horror, I only know 2 people that have them. It's not a book I've ever seen for sale other than one restored copy. But it's just, I mean, it's cool. It's not it's the rarity that drives the value on this, because if you're a pre-code horror collector and you have this, it's sort of a status symbol, and it's super cool to be able to grab a copy of this.
What about that couple might have like 10 of those though?
Yeah, they probably do. What you gotta get. I'm telling you, these days you got to get to that stuff before one of them does, because if it ends up in a black hole collection, it's gone forever.
Yeah,
it gets sucked up and it never comes back out.
show out what they have on books. It's something crazy.
Which is fine. I mean, I don't hold it against people that do that. It's just you got to be on top of it, because if you see a book you want that's rare, if it goes into a black hole collection, it's not coming back out for decades. So that it's tougher these days. Whereas, many years ago, from what I hear, this stuff was not that popular and it wasn't highly sought after, as opposed to now it's highly coveted stuff. There's a lot of people in the market for it.
I could show you a couple books. Now, the first two are going to be books that I have that it felt like unicorn, because I was after them for at least a year for each of them. You guys actually tried to help me with one of them, but the first one is this.
Oh, you got one. It's awesome.
For a long time, the only one I would see was this one that like
Reese,
Dave and something.
David Adams.
Yeah, they had like some crazy, super amazing like condition one that like, well, I'm not getting that. But finding this was so hard. And then this one, you guys helped me. I was looking for it for a year, and then finally one came up on auction, and I just had to like bid up the, to get it. I did get it, but I still, I'm kind of like, I don't know if it was really worth that much. I might buy another one if it ends up cheaper, and maybe I wouldn't be in a bidding war or something. Who knows? But I still haven't seen Marvel 3.
Yeah. At C2E2, I tried to get Vince to go check the vault he had back in New York. I'm like, go to the vault, have somebody there now, and tell me if we got it, because I got to deal with this book, and you want this book from me, and I want to get this. By the way, this was our flag number 5. This is one somebody. I don't know, Jeff. Maybe you want to. That look familiar at all?
Yeah, it does look familiar.
This they say.
I just saw that somewhere.
Picture down here, but there you go. Well, it's considered completely very hard to find. Again, we're talking that comic, the very early on book. But
where did I see that? I saw that book like a couple months ago. Somebody showed me a picture of either their copy or what.
Yeah, they say it's a unicorn. So
yeah, I saw a copy too. I think on Instagram somebody was showing that they had picked it up or just busted it out. It might have been. I can't remember who it was, but I remember seeing that as being part of somebody's collection who's like a major player in the Golden Age scene, that they've had this for years, and they just posted a picture of it as they're going through their books. I could be wrong. That happens a lot, though, but I think that's where I saw it a couple months ago.
So like this is was very hard to find, but this other book I'm about to show is also super hard to find, but there's been more for sale, but I feel like there should have been more because it is a major key, which is this one. And when this is just really dry, you cannot find one of these. And sometimes there'll be like 1 offered per year or 2 offered per year. I mean, whatever. There's private sales, but I can't.
The dirty underworld.
But like this, like you'd think, being such a major key, it's one of the top 3 timelies. It would be, people would be selling. It's not like it was like losing money, although it did drop in price. Tech 31 Kid told me about, I think it was in the 90s, late 90s maybe, where it actually dropped in value. But so maybe people, I don't know, vaulted them at that point or something. But considering those, I hesitate to show these because I don't want any more competition. But like at this point, it's kind of a joke. Like it's been years. I don't even know if I've ever seen one for sale. But these are 2 books I would love to have.
Oh, okay. Canadian Whites.
Canadian Whites.
and a really good cover of her kicking Hitler. Nelvana.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think you've increased the demand on that just by showing those books any more than it's already been already out there, man.
I have never even had the opportunity to even see one in the market.
There's some book I've heard about with Red Baron something or another that's extremely hard to find. But I've always wanted. It's not an elephant cover. Don't go down that road. But it's somebody declares as the first. It's like a very early. I think it's 38, 39. It's got a Red Baron kind of a plane and another plane coming towards it. And I forget what book it is. I have to look it up. But people have said that is like the first, like air war, first wartime book. It was before World War II started, and it started, and it was it was a German published thing, but anti-German invasion, a bombing, and it was the Red Baron itself saying, "I'm back," and it was Goebbels or whatever his name was, Goering, was literally next to him, flying the plane. It was a young Goering, and there was a story that people recently have asked to me about if I've ever seen one. I said no, I've never even heard of it. And they said it's like the rarest one that World War II collectors collect. It's the first depiction of the Germans at war, and it's done by a German artist and German writer. That was a unicorn. Somebody mentioned to me that they don't think any of them survived because of book burnings and whatever was going on, but it was there, and there might be a few copies out there. And I've heard about it being sold at copies auction. I don't even know the title. I'll have to find it.
Comic?
Well, it's considered a comic because it was published. It's the size or whatever, and there's been a picture of it in like the 60s or 70s. There was a picture of it being held up, but it's not like a U.S. published one. It could be a Canadian one. So,
also this, I think I had the opportunity, but I missed it on auction once in the past, like 6 or 7 or 8 years, maybe. And I know that Rick got one, but this I haven't had the opportunity to even try to buy.
First Tarzan.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect as the prices on pulp start going up as they are, and the market becomes more established, and more money and investors and collectors and hobbyists enter the pulp market, you will see what happens in any other market. The more money that is offered for stuff, the more often people will have a market. So
9 years ago, one sold for $42,000. So
that would be a VG copy today, would easily hit the 60,000.
Yeah, but there's people that have copies of that don't want to sell it, but then when they think they can get 200,000 or 250 for it, you'll start seeing people be like, "Yeah, it's time to part with this now. It's $200,000 pulp."
Yeah,
and then it's not going to be any cheaper. Obviously, it's going to be super.
That puts it in a weird spot because I don't think people would spend that much on it.
I mean,
but I mean, would people spend $3 million on a comic book? If you asked me in 1995, that'd be freaking insane. Nobody's going to spend $3 million on a comic book. You know what I mean? But now it's like, a Spider-Man book went over $1 million. You would have never thought that either. So, you're spending over $1 million on a comic book. What's 200,000 on the Action One of pulps?
I'm thinking Werewolf by Night
could be
sold for $50,000. All right.
Yeah, but it's dropped since.
But just that price alone, when I saw that, I said, "That's it." I put my hands up. That Moon Knight outdid Wolverine on the same auction, the same grade, both white pages, both 9/8, and one outdid the other by 13,000.
That's a tough hero, but a tough book right there. That's the first appearance of Submariner.
Yeah,
right there.
That was they had it at movie theater.
Really?
That's the movie theater promo.
I consider that a promotional comic.
I mean, you're throwing out pulps. I threw out something.
No, that's a fair thing. All stories was a pulp, but it was
when you go back
before
comics were like, now it's like the first appearance comes out and there's this, and it's very well established. Back then, you had giveaways, you had promos, you had comic strips, you had any number of different types of things all sort of mixing in the same world. And I feel like it's more legit that could be a first appearance, whether it's a giveaway or a promo or not, because that was part of it back then, where it's not like now. It's much more established when something comes out, like what's a first appearance, what's a cameo, what's a promo. It's back then it's all sort of being thrown out there together in the mix, and I feel like they're all on much more even footing that's legit. I've got a Buck Rogers serial giveaway from 33 that predates Famous Funnies 3, which is his first comic book appearance. I mean, what Famous Funnies 3 is technically a comic book, but all that stuff is sort of coming out around the same time to the same audience and the same type of formats, I feel like. So
yeah, because you got that Amazing Stories with the first appearance of him in it, right? Quarterly.
Yeah.
He shows in.
Yeah, 1929, Amazing Stories, and 1933 is that cereal Wheaties giveaway, Kellogg's giveaway.
I was quarterly with one of them.
And then Famous Funnies number 3 is like 1934 or 35 or something. But it's all sort of mixing together back then.
79 price guide. You got Marvel Comics coming in number 1, coming in first place, ahead of Action Comics. Marvel is listed at 10,000, and Action Comics number 1 is at 7,500. Then you got that Motion Pictures at 6,000. Then Wiz, and then Batman, then 27.
Yeah, Wiz was definitely I always thought Wiz was the more expensive book for years than Tech 27.
Another one I think is
from what people I talked to that collected in the 60s and 70s, like Don Rosa said, the one thing he did bring up, he goes, we didn't pay attention to that. It was Fawcett was bigger than DC for most of the collectors, because Shazam was bigger than Batman up until 66, 67. And even then, people weren't going after first appearances, but it was Captain Marvel was a continuous storyline. I don't know. They just said Tech 27 kind of shot up on
FF1 was almost double the price of a Amazing Fantasy. Number 1, Fantastic Four 1, $600. Number 2, Showcase 4, $450, and number 3, Amazing Fantasy 15 for $360.
Nice.
I'll tell you another one that's tough, but I would be curious what Jeff thinks about how tough it actually is Fantastic Comics 3. Now, I know people who own that don't ever want to give it up, but I really don't think there's that many copies of that out there anyway. But what do you think? I don't know.
Well, if we want to talk about many, I would say there's probably at least 30. There's probably 30 plus copies of that book out there. I would think there's probably 30. I mean, between 30 to 50, just assuming there's ones that haven't been found yet or just sitting in personal collections. But I promise one person I know has got to have probably 10 to 15 alone. And then I know people who have copies that are raw and haven't submitted them. I think one of them was the Bethlehem copy a guy said he has, and it's not graded, but he's got it. And another person, I've one or two I've met who haven't graded their copies. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's easily 30, possibly up to 50, out there of that book.
Yeah, it doesn't do a person any good who wants one, though, when the people that own those 30 to 50 copies don't ever put them on the market either. So
those people don't care about the other people as a collector, just like I don't always care about other people as a collector, because I rather have multiple copies of that book because I love it once, and I've said it before, I will love it twice, 3 times, 4 times a lady. And that comic.
Right, so there could be 30 copies or 300 copies, but if they don't come to market, it becomes a unicorn for those who don't have it. So, I don't think I've seen one publicly for sale in years. I mean, I know a couple privately have changed hands, but I haven't seen one publicly for sale in a long time.
I have a coverless, and I was like exciting to get a coverless white pager. I was like, yay, I got a coverless. I'll make a photocopy or I'll find a cover one day if I get freaking lucky. By the way, if you ever play the parts game for comics, I don't recommend it because it's nothing but heartache.
I'm still trying to find a cover to Witch Tales 25. My friend who found a coverless white for $15. He goes, if I could just find a cover for another 20, we can marry a book. And right there, we can't find that bell.
Oh, it's tough, man. Okay. I remember I had an Exciting Comics. I bought a cover to Exciting Comics 39. Okay, the Poison Candy cover.
Yep.
All right, everyone knows that cover. And I was like, okay, if I got the cover, that's the hard part. I'll just get a coverless. Man, I haven't seen a coverless. I found one coverless on eBay, and I was so excited. But when I read the details, it was missing the centerfold. So I was like, I'm going to buy an incomplete coverless to go with my cover. I was like, what's the point?
Yeah. Hey, I had a question for you, Jeff. So it's been my opinion that to figure out what might be remaining out there, copies in existence, would be you take the CGC census and multiply it by 3. But if the book is the super valuable, then maybe multiply it by 2.
I don't know if value's got anything to do with the book of how many copies are out there. You
I
know,
say
like
that because of this scenario, like some piece of crap Western that has 1 copy on the census. You can't say there's 2 or 3. It's that no one is gonna.
Well,
Great.
I
That's
agree on
interesting.
wanted comics. The late wanted comics are hard to come by because they are collectible, they are desirable, but they just don't exist.
But like,
Because-
for instance, Sensation 1, very collectible, very
Right.
low. I
Right.
think
Yeah,
that number is more
more-
accurate than something that is not collectible and low.
Yeah, I don't know, because there's a lot of, like what Jeff was saying, somebody has a Bethlehem copy of the Fantastic Three. I guarantee they have no desire to put that in plastic at all.
Yeah.
People who have been collecting for decades and were going after stuff before it was sort of cool, and they don't want them in slabs. They like raws, and they have all these major Golden Age Grails that they've had for decades that they keep in raw. And I feel like they're at some of these real old books. I think most of them are raw, and you hardly ever see them ever get sent in on the census now because people keep them raw. So I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to use a multiplier. I mean, I do it sometimes for pre-code horror, but I feel like nothing, even the biggest PCH book, pales in comparison to most of the stuff we're talking about. I mean, you're talking even on 9, even near mint copies of major horror grails are 20 or 30 grand. That's like dropping the bucket for Golden Age books. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. In my experience, I don't find that scarcity equals dollar value when it comes to comics. All scarcity does potentially is give you an idea of demand for the most part, to an extent. Obviously, census is misleading or however you want to look at it, but obviously scarcity is not what's going to give value to a book or really anything. It seems like it's the demand of it. And as you can tell with the Hulk 181, it is not a scarce or rare book, okay? But the demand is way high. Golden Age books, they're out there. Again, that's a great prime example. Like, if we had as many collectors in the Silver Age as there are, and put those on the Golden Age, every one of these Golden Age books would multiply exponentially. So the demand would be, 10 times higher. I'm assuming Silver Age collectors are 10 times, even more than that, probably in the Golden Age.
I think some pod collectors out to any other age.
Yeah. So maybe modern. I mean, modern.
What would you say?
Yeah.
5 times the census.
Oh. I mean,
I'll tell you what I like about rare books, regardless of the value. Like this one, this is probably like a $400, $500 book, if that. Not worth. I have books worth more than this that they're less rare, but I treasure this one because of the rarity. And part of what I like about myself being a Golden Age collector is you put together a collection of books for yourself that is totally unique, and nobody out there, no matter how much money they have, no matter how established of a collector they are, no matter how much of a big dog they are, or how long they've been doing it, has all the books I have. I have a unique collection, and there's nobody that has all the books I have. There's going to be some that they don't have, and I do have. And not to take away from, Silver Age, Bronze Age, all this other stuff. Those are far more popular, so we're on the sort of the least popular part of the arena here. But, if you're into Silver Age, there's a lot of people that have the top 20 Silver Age keys. And there's a lot of other people that also have the top 20 Silver Age keys. I like that my collection, even against people with massive, more valuable Golden Age collections, don't have the books I have. So there's a sense of pride and a sense of uniqueness to a Golden Age collection, regardless of value. And it's really cool for me. I like to get rare books, even if they're not valuable, if they're cool, because I might be the only one that has a certain selection of them. So I don't know. That's part of why I like Golden Age collecting.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head about what we collect in our PC and what we go after. It's we just saw different people have different views on what our own personal unicorns are, and what our own opinions are. Like, obviously my Adventure 34 would be the most expensive, or the Wonder Woman 9, which I almost got last week. Missed out of it by a minute because I was calling the guy and he had it out there on eBay and it was perfect copy for me. But Anyway, it's still available. It's always out.
But, you know, one thing we didn't talk about is when you know you have a unicorn,
Right.
prepare yourself to get it. Like, what do you do? For
I
me,
have
save as
I
much
have
money as
out of the
possible.
census.
When it comes to auction, be prepared to do crazy things.
I mean, to get one of my
Contact owners of the book that you know and offer.
I've done it. I wanted 49. I knew the guy with the higher grade than I had. He had a 5 graded, and he's since cracked it open and got a 4.5, which is great. Because then we both tied for the highest grade. I also had the second highest grade in the 3.5, and I had 2 of the 3 only on the census. There are now 6 on the census because of the popularity of Wanted and Crime started to skyrocket, particularly the later 49 through 53, which are hard to find in their own rights, especially 50. I still don't have a good copy of 50. That goes for $1,000 in a 2 because nobody sees it anywhere. But Wanted collectors are ridiculous about this comic. It's Orbit Publishing, which is post St. John's. When St. John's went bankrupt, they sold it off to Orbit Publishing, which was a toy company. And Toy Fair, I think it was, Jeff. Was it Toy Fair or something was the comic company, but it called Orbit. And I went through and I've got all the other ones. I've got at least 1 or 2 raw of each one, and 3 of the 4 slabbed. And it's just taken forever to get those Wanteds. Now, I offered one out recently on the CGC boards. That thing didn't last long at all. And I was like, I paid less than $100 for that a year and a half ago, and it is selling for 4 times that amount, like that. And that's only because there was so few on the census. Now, it did gain popularity because of the CGC started recognizing it as a full-on John Buscema work, you know, like they did with Thunder 1, first cover to cover, Frazetta and only one. That was the first Buscema cover to cover. Not a big deal by any means.
Are we seeing much value in that first Buscema cover art with the Man Comics 1? Because I just bought the highest grade and not realizing it.
It's actually number 6 of this is first cover art.
I thought I heard it was Man Comics 1 was the first.
No, he did his first one in 48. His first book ever, I think, is Crime Fighters Always Lose, number 4. This is the first one published by Time. This came out 2 months before. And this is the story. It's a story in here. So you got this story, then you got the Abraham Lincoln story. And then the cover is Lawbreakers Always Lose, number 6. It's 2 guys with a gun.
So that's his first. That's his first cover. Is that Lawbreakers 3?
According to the Buscema people, yeah. Now CGC asked for proof, which I have pages and pages of proof of this stuff. I'm not kidding you. Here it is. Lawbreakers Always Lose, number 6, from Atlas directly. This is the cover. I'll show it so everybody can see. So this is an example of what I fight with why I like CGC and we work together. So I print out all this paperwork with this document, and it was bi-weekly, and it is the cover credit, according to Jim Vanderveer, is John Buscema. And this would have been somebody who would have known because he runs there. Now, Gene Colan is also in here, which is a very early Gene Colan, and this is considered Lawbreakers Always Lose, number 6 by Atlas on their census right there, and it's spring 48 to October of spring of. So this particular issue was February of 1949. And that's what it looks like there. Now there's the Boy comics, and then there's the Man comics, and then there's also Blaze Carson number 4, which is probably right over here.
I'm gonna grab the Man comic. Hold on, I have here.
Hold on. I'll show the Blaze Carson number 4. Unicorns. Oh, here's Two Gun Western. Here's the young men. Here's the young men early Buscema. And here's the Two Gun Western. And this is his first work here. Crime Fighters Always Lose. This is also right after that comic. I do have too much stuff. What's in here? Oh, these are posts.
Yeah, Man Comics 1 is December of 49, it looks like.
Yeah, and it doesn't say Buscema on it.
Well, that's the thing. It won't say it. Does it say
Doesn't
Buscema on it?
From when I was
No,
under
see,
impression that
well, because this was before that. Look up All True Crime number 33.
I know he did a lot of interiors. That's why I wasn't sure. I thought this was his
Right,
first.
this is the first interior. This is actually the first interior work he ever did is in here called Crime Fighters. It's called Crime Fighters number 4. This is it in 1948. And the story that he did in there is a really cool one. It's the Abraham Lincoln, the stealing of Lincoln's body. It's going to piss people off that I'm doing this, right? People complain about wearing gloves. I say that every time because I just think that's still the stupidest thing ever. But here we go. This is the first work he ever did. He did this before, but he did this. This was his first paying job. He gave this to Stan, and Stan published it and said, okay, this is your first work. You're going to pay you for it. And then the other book, Lawbreakers Always Lose, came out first because this was a quarterly.
But would you
Monthly.
buy one of his like 6-year-old drawings?
No.
Would I buy it?
Why would I buy it? No. I mean, I collect the comic book for everything that he
Wondered
does.
how this went.
How was this?
By the way, Sid Shores did the cover.
Was this cross hatching at point at that time? Because if it was, then yes.
Actually, the work, if you want to know, isn't really that good. It's not as great as his later stuff, but it's nothing like Savage Sword or Conan. Or
It
That's
took
why
him a
I
while.
in first appearance of artists. Like I remember trying to go after like McFarlane's and Jim Lee's first way back in the day, and then I was finally like, dude, this is crap. Like Infinity, whatever it is.
Well, I'll tell you,
McFarlane.
McFarlane, I actually did some research when I was collecting McFarlane stuff, and I wanted to get his first cover, his first published work, his first with this and that. And so I went looking, and it wasn't out there. I'm like, what the hell? Nobody really knows. So I researched it, and I made a timeline of everything he worked on in order. And I checked, and there's no notes on CGC. There's no notes in my comic shop. Like, nobody knew. So I sent my research to CGC, and I was like, hey, Infinity, what was it? Infinity Inc. 14 was the first McFarlane cover that he worked on. And I sent him the research, and they said, you're right, we're going to add that to the label. And then, so I sent a couple in, I got 9/8, and they had that on the label. First two that had that on the label. And then
I remember you did a video about
and then that had that in there. So I had all the first McFarlane stuff. But sometimes it's not recognized until somebody does the research and puts it out.
good work.
there's
Good
two
work.
artists I do like that it's Buscema and Wrightson. I try to get everything they did before. But you could see this is a very early Buscema. You can actually see this is his very early style. And this is right around the time of that Man comic. This is the other one. This is a famous story he did, The Champ. You could see that's pretty much typical of John Buscema right there, of that era. This is 1940. No, this is 1950 or 49, number 4. So it's around that time when he was doing early stuff. So,
Well, I'll tell you one thing I won't do for a unicorn, and this may change because I've changed as a collector almost weekly at this point. But what's still for unicorns, I will not sacrifice my standards because there's plenty of other books out there. I don't want restored books. I don't want incomplete books. I will occasionally go low grade, like really low grade, like for this one, or my all new 8 has a detached cover. I'll stretch it that far, but I won't buy restored. I won't buy incomplete, and I'll stick to that because, you know, there's always other books out there I want, and so if a book comes up that it's a grail of mine, like there was a Dynamic 8. There's 2 of them that came up in the last year. One had a lot of issues. It had multiple wraps detached, I think, and the other one's incomplete. And I have no interest in either one because I'm not one of those guys that wants to be able to just say I have it. I want a good copy of my standard. So I will wait, and maybe I'll never get it, and that's fine. But there's other stuff I can get in the meantime so that my collection as a whole meets my standards. And whatever your standards are, I think it's a good idea to not jump below your standards just on the spur of the moment or impatiently just to get something to say you have it. Because what I found when I used to do that, I'm a little dissatisfied and I sort of regret doing that.
That's a good point.
I know that.
Yeah, Jeff, we don't know.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I wonder what a few of us have we had on a previous show, we discussed our drop dead of what we will not accept. Like, I will never buy an incomplete book. It's just my thing. I'll deal with the restored as it comes, but I will not go out and honestly purchase a book that is incomplete. It's my only thing that I won't buy a coverless, and I will not buy anything that's missing a centerfold, or I don't mean a coupon cutout. I mean something incomplete where it says incomplete. I'm out. I won't touch it. Whatever. Well, what's your big cutoff? Or
Yeah,
your
I mean, for my
absolute number?
yeah, I think we're going to probably be a lot of the same here. But for me, I'm not. If the label isn't blue, it's not going to be in my personal for the most part. I'm not a big fan. I mean, unless the restoration. If it's a restoration, it's like tear seals, something I can live with or undo. Okay, fine. But for the most part, if it's incomplete, that's a no. I do have parts and pieces because I fell into that game a long time ago, and it's just a rabbit hole, and that's more for fun. But for my personal stuff, I just don't. I'm with you guys. I don't like it if it's not complete for sure. And restoration, no. I don't think I have anything restored or conserved in my personal at all right now. And if I do, it's for sale. So, you know.
Hey man,
but yeah.
You just have to hold it in your hands, and that's when you'll know. You know,
Well, I have
because I know damn right if I'm holding a cover to Action Comics #1 in my hands and it's mine, I'm gonna be happy to some
You are
extent.
gonna be happy.
So I mean,
If I had a cover to Action 1, I would definitely sell it without a doubt.
I have a purple label Avengers 4 because I've had the book forever, but the color touch they have is because of a marker when somebody put a little eye black on him there. That's not really a color touch, but that's what it was. That affected this book to go purple. So I said, I don't care. I've had this book in my collection 10 years before slabbing exists. I'm not getting rid of it. It's my book anyway, but point of the matter I'm saying is that's not color touch.
along with that, so the label thing is throw that out the window too, because if I had an Action 1 with someone sharpied the whole Superman body out, but it was like a 6.0 blue label drawn on by a kid, I would way rather have an awesome, like pristine cover.
Well,
I would way rather have that.
to me, would you rather have a restored copy or a unrestored copy that a kid scribbled all over the cover image? I don't want either one of them. Yeah, I can't afford either one of those in an Action 1 anyway. I'm not one to look my nose down on any copy of an Action 1, but I have when I see, restored Hulk 1 in a 9.8. That's not a Hulk 1. It's like there's some of it's a Hulk 1, but I'm not. It's the highest graded, sort of. But Action 1 9.0 restored, beautiful looking book. That's not an Action 1 for me. That's an amalgamation of artificial parts. It's like a cyborg book, and it's just, for me, I would just pass on it, and I will probably never ever get a book like that. But that's fine. There's other smaller books I can get that I can be happy with. I can be happy with lesser books. If a Suspense 3 came up in my wheelhouse and it was restored, I wouldn't even go after it. Even if it went cheap, it would have to go cheap enough to have flip value, and then I would flip it. Honestly, no joking. That's a major grail of mine, but a restored copy I just wouldn't want for my PC. And, that's just how I am, and I know that's going to mean there's a lot of big books I can't get, and I'm okay with that because there's some books I can't afford blue label copies. But that's cool. Then I'll go after other stuff. There's plenty of stuff I want. So.
Yeah, it depends on what type of restoration, because it's weird. Because like if there's no restoration, but there's like tons of tape and it was like crumpled up, and I can imagine some kids having this or whatever, and there's like a history, that seems better to me than some dude like carefully trimming and like bathing it in all these liquids and like attaching all these other pieces to like blend it and like I don't know, for some reason that turns me off.
Yeah, and I don't mind. I'm one of those. I'm probably in the minority on this. I don't mind tape on Golden Age books.
I'm used to it.
So
I have a whole collection I bought with it. I'm sure Jeff.
I know that Jeff's saying no. You hate tape, right?
No.
I hate tape on books, man. Drives me crazy.
I don't mind it at all.
I've had it. I had a whole collection of like the ACG books, like the Adventures into the Unknown, and a couple of the other ones. I bought a lot of them. was tape, and I called it even on my sales on the CGC3. I always say use unnecessary tape on spine, unnecessary, because I show, look, it's completely attached, it's completely there, but people used to tape them for no reason other than to hang them and stop them from ripping when people pulled it down.
I'm not talking about like a piece of tape or two. I'm talking like tape down the entire spine, or tape like in interior pages. I mean, like if I can do anything I can to remove the tape, I will freaking move that tape, because it eats at me knowing that the tape is there. It, like, for me, it just eats at me. But I just really real quick, I do want to get what you're saying. Like I kind of a little hypocritical here, because I did say I wouldn't do like pieces or parts in my personal. I would, if I had the cover to Action 1 or whatever, I would keep that and I would cherish it. I do have my I have my coverless Fantastic 3. It's a great book for me and a good filler. It's not going to go anywhere. Maybe if I get another one, great. But again, I like dupes. So it's like, well, if I already have this and it's a cool book, I'll keep the coverless because I know it's in demand.
Part of my preferences have to do with my budget as well. I have a very limited budget. I am not about to spend any of it on stuff that is not, I'm trying to maximize the quality for my PC. Now, when I hit the lottery next week and win $250 million and I see cover to an Action 1, yeah, I'll buy it. I'll frame it. I'll put it on the wall. I find an incomplete this. Yeah, I'll buy it and maybe see if I can find the parts. But I don't have money to spare. I don't have a budget. I got to go after what I consider to be top-notch quality books with the budget I have, which is small for the type of books I'm trying to get. So I've got to really try to be very efficient. So that's part of what drives me for that period.
But would you cherish something that fell in your lap? Like, let's just say a cover to Action 1 fell into your lap. Like, literally, you put a hole in the wall in the house that you're in and you found it. Like, are you like, I'm going to cash out and I'm going to get something that I really want? So for you, it's just not something you cherish.
No,
somebody else, maybe a different collector fell into and be like, oh, okay, I've wanted this. This is the only way I'm going to get any portion of Action 1. So this is what I'm going to keep. Or people will cash out because they read that money. I mean, obviously, it's your situation and how you want it.
Like if a Suspense 3 cover fell in my lap, would I cherish that?
I would.
I would cherish it, but only to a certain dollar point. I think I would get an offer that it would be easy for me to let that go. Because it's not a Fantastic 3. It's a cover to a Fantastic 3. I know we're sort of splitting hairs on some of this, and it's, but yeah, I would cherish it while I had it until I got that offer. And then I would happily move it. And I would always be able to say I had it. But it wouldn't be like owning a low-grade, complete Suspense 3.
Right.
I feel like I can get a poster of a Suspense 3 is only slightly less than the cover of a Suspense 3. I don't know. It's the complete book, the complete work of art that came out as a complete thing that drives me to collect. And it's ironic because I'm a cover collector. So go figure. But
one of the Jeff, you bring up the point of points that there are piece collectors and page collectors, and I think there are books that people always want to have, that Superman, Action 1, definitely tech, especially the scene or the part of the book that shows that character, either the first time. I've seen those pages go for well into the six-figure range just for that one alone, for a page, which makes sense. It really does. It's historic, and I think that's what we have to take about some of these unicorns are historic, and some of these books that we're talking about, the people piecemeal, are historic pieces of an era. So pretty cool. One thing I wanted to shout about the Mainframe Comic-Con is we will have Golden Age books for sale. Some of these shops have been previewing a few of these things. I will say there'll be a lot more fun. Some all-Americans, all winners. We'll all be winners, and we'll have a lot more fun than we should have. That gives you an idea over there. We might have a little bit of pep in our step, and you never know if an Archie, Betty or Veronica or whoever might just show up. We've got a lot of great books that people have been showing us, and we're kind of excited about one of them in particular. I am thinking that it's ridiculous, but we're excited about that. We went a little overboard, but
that again.
April 25th and 26th. I think I think there might be a overlay I can look for. maybe on.
Are you gonna sell stuff on it, Jeff?
I don't know anything about it, so
Oh no, yeah, you and I have to talk about something I want to ask you.
And I know Nerdy Girl was looking for a place to potentially sell some of her stuff. Might want to hit her up.
Well, there you go, Mainframe Comic-Con live.
Hey, okay, go ahead.
That's what that is, and we'll be working on some panels and stuff, and I'm thinking about doing a fun panel with some people. See if I can get some people to do stuff. Anybody want to say anything more?
I want,
keep going. You guys.
Oh, but I did want to ask Jeff you a question about, because I was watching one of Nerdy Girl Filter, whatever the heck, Adam or whatever, I can't remember his name, but that dealer, she said that they're gonna phase out Golden Age, and I just wondered your opinion on that.
They know the marketplace pretty well. So if that's kind of their perspective and their viewpoint, and I know it's there for a reason. I know they've also been investing in video games a lot, so there can only maybe be so much on both ends. You're burning the candle on both ends there, and so I think maybe it just makes more sense that get out of one field a little bit, still stay, or she sees the market stronger in Silver Age, or maybe she wants to keep a lot of her Golden Age for now and wait until because she's very focused on her higher end stuff, so maybe she's waiting for more of a window to open up. I can't speak for them, but
demand is not there, she said.
Okay, yeah. So again,
to video games, if you compare it to sealed video games,
Yeah, I don't know the game market. I know it's a very strong market for a lot of people, and a lot of people are doing very well in it. It's not something I'm familiar with. I probably should educate myself so I don't stay naive, especially when we're out here in this area nights and we have Nintendo down the street. Really, something we should be exploring. But for her,
and Castlevania later.
Yeah, Castlevania is very good, by the way. The anime is really great too. So for her, like I said, she has her price point. She's into her books where she's into. If she's not finding the price point she's getting, then I fully trust her on the way she buys and spends. And just like we each buy and spend our own groupings and what we feel comfortable with. So I'm sure it's a wise decision. Like I said, they know their stuff really well. And there's got to be some merit behind her thought process. For me, I'm like, yay, one less competition, maybe more books coming out, but more power to them and everything they do. So
there's a lot of people that are into Golden Age though, but like she's collecting mostly like superhero Golden Age too, and I feel like that's a distinct market from like Dark GA. The two markets operate completely differently. She has a lot of like action comics and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't follow that market, so that could have something to do with it. But I'm telling you, I'm watching prices of stuff in the market that I'm in, and it seems like it's stronger than Silver Age for sure right now. So I don't know. Every market goes through cycles, and it doesn't hurt to move around to different markets and get familiar with them.
Yeah, I don't think there's one wrong era. To be honest, I find value in most all eras. Like I said, most. I'm not sure on what's happening now and what's been divided long term, but for me, yeah, you collect what you like, enjoy the freaking hobby any way you can. I like Silver Age. I have plenty of Silver Age keys. I have plenty of Golden Age books, plenty of Bronze Age. I like them all for individually, and so I don't want to poo-poo anyone. If you want to go all in on Silver, more power to you. It's like it's any other market, right? Your numbers. You can play it, do Golden Age. If you get tired of Silver, hey, move to Golden Age, because that's generally what happens, right? You get tired and bored of it, of the hobby, and you need to transcend to something different that will absolutely add more excitement to your collecting if you want to ever make that leap.
I want to hear about your transition to Golden Age on another show. I think that would be really fun. Yeah. Because everyone has their reason where it like clicks in their head. They're like, wait a minute.
I think it's always grip, and then you just jump right in. it's drip, drip, and then before you know it, you stop looking at silver altogether, and you just, okay, if that comes up, I'm interested when that comes up. But what is this, and I want to know everything about this. Is great, but that's definitely a good topic for the show. Is the drip, drip, jump, or how everybody got into the Golden Age. We want to hear from you guys too in the chat. Sorry I didn't shout out the chat, but Silver Age Dave is here. Jambo again, thanks a lot for being here. TJ Slabdragon Watson threw in he would restore bothers him, but conserve does not. There are books that I would definitely say that conserve is a great title, is a great out there. And I've seen pedigrees actually conserve, which I kind of questioned that on one of them, but I have my opinion on certain pedigree books. But thanks for having here. Superior Hero Review, good having you here. Thanks again. Anybody else throw in anything? Jeff, want to throw in anything? You got anything coming up?
I got a podcast I think coming out tonight on Comic Time 101. So I think it should be coming out today. If not, it'll come out tomorrow. Other than that, I'm excited to be back here maybe next week. And guys, keep buying books, man. They're out there for good value. Got a cool fine cover. You know, this came from a bigger dealer too, who just doesn't keep up with titles like that. You know.
You never know. All right, Diaz, you got anything?
I don't have anything coming up.
You got categories. That was pretty good. You had fun on that?
Watch the replay if you want on Boy Who Had Seven's channel. We did Comigories last night, and I actually won. I am the Comigories current reigning champ for the next 2 weeks, and I showed all Golden Age books. Obviously, that's all I have pretty much. All Golden Age books for the win. So
it was great. Great show on Matty Boy Who Had Seven's channel. It's really great. Knights, what's going on?
I am actually working on some videos. I'm doing this. I'm gonna have like 6 different videos, and they're gonna be what I consider it's comics that I own, but it's gonna be classic covers, and I'm breaking it down by like 1970 to 1974, and you can only pick 10. And 1975 to 1979, and it's really, really difficult, but it's really fun. And hopefully I can get those out this week. So look out for those. And I hope other people do their own, because, you know, it's if you only have it because you own it in there, it adds a whole nother layer of complexity, and it's pretty fun. And you'll see how difficult it is to pick. You think 10 out of 5 years isn't so bad, but it gets really tough.
Yeah, you were 70 to 75. Yeah, I'd have to choose my top 10. I have to go Ryzen versus Buscema without trying to think of any Doctor Strange in the middle of it. That I'm a 9.
Fun.
It's tough.
You'll like it.
Fun one. All right. I'll be working this week. We'll be doing some more stuff with the con coming up. So keep an eye out tomorrow night's show on Comic Core. Definitely keep an eye on Jeff on his Comic Con 101. And everybody have fun, and thank you all for being a friend. Thanks for being here. Let's take a new brand to get out of here. Let's see if we got any fun ones here. Now I got to go. Which one do we want to do today? Matrix. That's a fun one. All right, everybody, be careful with what you're doing.
See you.